Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Fabio Palvelli and I'm a designer. Every week on this channel I share a little bit of my life on video, as well as tips and tricks on how to be a better designer. So if this is your first time here, please do consider subscribing. This week on my channel, I'm bringing you an interview with Simon Migaj. Very often on my channel, I've touched on the topic of freelancing as an ArchViz artist. So today, I wanted to share with you the story of a guy that has been a freelancer and he's been doing it very successful. Simon is a super fun guy, he's a very clever artist, and he knows a couple of things that I'm pretty sure you're going to find very beneficial if you're trying your hand at starting a freelancing career as an ArchViz artist. Okay, enough of me blah blah blah, just enjoy this beautiful interview. 2, 1, and we're recording. Simon?
Hi Fabio.
Thanks a lot for taking the time, man. I was really looking forward to have this interview with you because of many things. But, since I don't want to give anything away, I'm just gonna let you do most of the talking. I have a couple of questions that I want to ask you. Hopefully the conversation will go its own way. Let's not get shy. Let's be open about everything. And let's share as much knowledge as possible about this beautiful industry of ours. Should we?
Yeah, man, yeah.
Simon, please tell me who you are and what you do in 2 minutes or less.
Who I am? My name is Simon Migaj. I am a freelance 3D artist running under the name of Presenter Design. I have been a freelancer for the last 2 years, living in London. That I've been doing that for the last 5 years, I think, or 6, either which. And yeah, that's basically it.
Oh my god, you're the only person that managed to actually do it in 2 minutes or less.
I know that, everything will happen probably in the next part of the conversation. So
It's true.
Let's keep it short.
Okay, so the reason why I wanted to have this conversation with you, it's because very often in my videos, I say all the time to people, don't go into freelancing in the field of ArchViz. And mainly the reason why I say this is because those who ask me are either very young or very unexperienced, or they never dealt with clients. And eventually there are also some other reasons that we're going to discuss later. But you are a freelancer, you're very successful at what you do. So I would like to know a little bit more about your adventure. How did that start?
How did that start? Oh God, this is quite a long story. I studied architecture in uni, which was between 2002 and 2007, if I'm correct.
How old are you?
And I am 35. I'm actually 36 in 5 days' time.
Happy birthday.
Oh, thanks, man. Basically, straight after uni, it kind of... I don't actually know why, but I never went into a permanent position straight after uni because I was doing architectural visualization already during my uni years for myself and for my friends because, well, it was architecture, so architectural visualization just came with it. And basically straight after uni, I decided to start a interior design company, which I was doing for quite a while, so I do actually come from that background. But then I started, incorporating architectural visualization into my own projects. Then I started getting inquiries purely for architectural visualization. So, I just kind of rolled with it and I went more and more into architectural visualization, leaving architecture, interior design behind. And it's first of all, it was fun. Second of all, I really enjoyed doing this because I've already had experience doing it during uni. Plus, actually, I picked up AutoCAD for the first time when I was 7 years old. So it was knowledge that I already had. So it was just very convenient. later on, unfortunately, we had the whole recession thing, etc. So I decided to move with all that knowledge from Poland to London and just build it up over here, which seems to work out.
Okay, what were the main challenges when you started out, and then, later on when you actually built your own freelance business?
Main challenges. Well, to be honest, I always had an issue with one thing, which is discipline. I don't know if people actually know how much discipline you need to be a freelancer. You have to actually, because you can't be all the time, get up at 5 a.m. and work until midnight. Yes, of course, there are times when you have to meet, tight deadlines, etc. But in general, you have to have discipline to manage your clients, to manage your invoices, to manage your time. You have friends, family. There are other people in your life, and you can't just work from like 24 hours a day. So that was my main challenge, because when I was a kid, I never had discipline. So I've been freelancing now, 2 years? And to be honest, I've only started learning, picked up discipline, I guess, probably a year ago or something like that. And I do get the feeling that people don't really realize how much discipline you have to do this thing by yourself.
I'm reading a book at the moment where the author says, whenever starting a business, one of the biggest issues, reason why people fail is that they wildly underestimate the effort that goes into anything, planning, surviving, charging, all this kind of stuff,
Oh yeah, definitely. Plus, it's kind of I think that there is a misconception about freelancing. A lot of people are thinking that you're just sitting at home in front of your PC, working 2 hours a day, 1 week a month, and you'll make enough money to make a living. And that just won't happen. You will get a project that will have, I don't know, you're sitting by yourself, you will have a project that has even 6 images. That's already a month and a half that you have to get up in the morning, sit down for 8 hours and work straight to achieve, a good quality. And I admit I had the same misconception, especially like when I was still freelancing back in Poland. I was 27 at the time. So, I also thought that it's this beautiful life, which it isn't. You have to do accounting, you have to do invoices, you have to do so many things, and you also have to charge for that time. So it's yeah, like you said, that you're telling people that it's not easy to be a freelancer, and yeah, I do agree.
I mean, I think that we're gonna go back to our questions in a second, but one of the biggest fear when I talk especially to the younger artists is that they always consider visualization somehow a shortcut from architecture, Maybe they start architecture, they are in their 2nd or 3rd year, they see that they have the capabilities of creating quick 3D, and they say, you know what, I'm going to quit architecture and I'm going to go into freelancing because, I can make a rendering in 1 day. And then, this is what it's happening in the academia. But when they go into the business side of things, then they find themselves, with a reality that they did not calculate.
Yeah, that's true. Plus, I don't know, right now I am thinking that maybe architecture would be, a little bit more approachable. With architecture, you usually work on one project for months and
years.
Years actually as well. And plus, with architecture is an established industry, while I think that our industry is still quite young. And a lot of companies that they've been on the market for 5-10 years. Technically speaking, they are still young companies, and they are still trying to find themselves in the reality that we are living in. And that's for a freelancer trying to find himself is just one person in the industry, or herself. I think it's quite a challenge.
Okay, so let's talk about challenges and things that you have learned thanks to these challenges. If you were to think of a couple of important lessons that you took from starting your own business and that you could be able to pass on to the younger generations, what would those be? Like,
first of all, don't undervalue your work. Don't think that you will just sell an image for the lowest price on the market possible. You actually should sit down and calculate the costs of your living, the costs of what you will need, the costs of your software, etc. Right now it's very easy to probably go on the internet and download a bunch of software and just go along with it and charge very little for your images. But that won't benefit you in the long run, because then you kind of fall into this loophole of you have been freelancing for 5 years and you're still charging the same amount for your images, and all of a sudden you have to be legal, you have to do accounting, you have to have an accountant, you have to think about so many things outside of your work. And a lot of people probably think that as long as you're skilled, then you're good and you can go with that. But of course, yes, being a freelancer, skills are definitely important, but there are just so many things around it that you have to think about.
Okay, so let me tell you one thing. I watched recently a movie about a heavy metal band called Anvil. Have you ever heard of them?
No.
So basically, they were very big in the 80s and then they disappeared. And for 30 years, these guys, they kept on playing and playing and playing. And after 30 years, somebody made a movie about them because they kept playing and they were really good, but nobody gave a shit about them. After these 30 years, because of the movie that was made about them, this movie brought notoriety back to them.
Yeah.
They became famous and then they started making money. But for 30 years, they had to work like minimum wage jobs. And
Wow.
when they interviewed the guy said, if I could go back, I would take a better manager, because skills by themselves, they won't take you far. You can be as talented as you want, but at the end of the day, this is a money game. And if you don't have money, you're bound to die,
Wow, that is unfortunately very true. That's the thing with freelancing in our industry. You have to be your own manager, and you have to be, 2 or 3 people in one person, and it requires some, talent and, like I've said, discipline.
But I don't know why, but from your social media presence, this kind of a third persona that you are, the manager, it kind of filters through, So I'm like, when I'm talking to you, I know that I'm not only talking to an artist, but I'm talking also to a guy that knows his numbers. You know what I mean? It's a very weird thing to say, but that's the feeling that I get from you.
Well, so you're the only person out of the two of us.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about, we touched on skills, we touched on features that a freelancer has to have in order to keep going and stay competitive. So, please expand on this and tell me more. I'll be interested to know a little bit more about this aspect.
Be competitive. Well, that's... I don't know if... This is my personal opinion. I don't really know if being competitive is that important. Yes, of course it is. If you want to do this in the long run, you have to somehow stand out of the crowd. But recently, I've noticed that is true definitely for freelancers. It's actually more important to be reliable. Companies, and unfortunately over the years I've noticed that rightfully so, companies very often don't trust freelancers because, like I've said, discipline is very important, and I do kind of acknowledge the fact that not everyone has it. And if you want to be a freelancer, you must have it. You must have the discipline to be perceived as companies as someone that they can rely on. Like I said, you can't just work 1 week over a month, especially if you are working like I often do. I often freelance for other CG companies. So, you have to show up in the morning, you have to do the work that's necessary. Like, if they require you to stay after hours, you can't be just, oh, I'm a freelancer, sorry, I need to go. So, it's kind of, I think that being reliable is very important. I don't know, it's kind of especially over the last half a year, I think I've unfortunately stumbled across few freelancers, not only CG freelancers, but also in a few other industries related to this one, that's, ruined or were ruining freelancers' opinions for some of the companies over here in London. And it's painful. It's painful because, you come in the morning, you being a freelancer yourself, you come in the morning and the managing director is just screaming because another freelancer hasn't showed up. And, and you immediately think, oh, damn it, they won't hire another freelancer ever again, which is painful for the industry. And again, the discipline and the reliability, I think, are very important.
So let me tell you one thing. Basically, the knowledge that I have from the industry side of things comes from me talking to people and going to events, and occasionally, we do phone calls with some of the managers of offices, and we share insights. I think this is a great exercise to do if you want to, keep an ear on everything that is going around yourself. But one of the things that I got from you specifically was, and I really remembered the time that I found out about this, I was like, this guy's a genius. He doesn't freelance for clients, he freelance for other companies. And this is maybe the key to be a successful freelancer, because, you're giving your heart and soul to somebody that can actually understand your heart and soul. You're not giving it to a client that only cares about return of investment. You know what I mean?
Yep, I definitely do know what you mean. But I also kind of have to tell you that, while of course to some degree this is true, most of the time, me being a freelancer with, please excuse the lack of humbleness, being a freelancer with quite a lot of experience, most of the time, whenever I'm even freelancing inside a company, they usually just give me a whole project, a whole client that I'm actually getting in touch with, etc. So it's still basically working directly with the final client, but under a different name than me, basically.
Yes,
but so it's still I still do all this bouncing the ball around with the client and dealing with all the comments, etc. But yes, you are of course right. The company that I'm freelancing for at the time deals with, well, let's be honest, whatever mess might happen and etc.
Yes, I think don't worry, you're very humble. I think that in your case, the fact that you actually proposed your skills to a CG company, it's a very intelligent move. Now, I think that it's almost like a natural progression that when the company trusts you more and more, they'll give you the client because they'll know that they can trust you. And since you want to go back and work with them, you're not going to drop the ball on them. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do understand. And yeah, you are definitely right. Plus, it's kind of, that's also the benefit of, especially for when you're working with bigger clients and bigger companies like over here in London, that's also the benefit of being on a permanent contract for quite some time. You know,
Yes.
you've built up a reputation, you've worked at some companies, you've interviewed with some people, etc. And, you know, people know you, people know your work, people know that various companies were happy with your work, and yeah, that benefits. So it's yeah, basically that's what I'm saying. It's more beneficial to start on a permanent contract and then go freelance than, you know, straight after uni, college, or whatever, go into freelancing.
Okay, good. I think that, you know, this is really valuable input. Also because I think that a lot of people, the reason why they go into freelancing, they do it for all the wrong reasons. Especially in the beginning, like you were saying, I also made that mistake. In the very beginning, I was like, I only need 1,000 euros a month and I'll be happy, you know? So I'm like, if I can do one image per month, I'll be happy. And that kind of attitude never really brought me anywhere, you know? And luckily enough,
I understand that.
Luckily enough, I was able to see it very early. But, you know, like I'm going to throw the ball at you. I have a theory, and I want you to expand a little bit on this. You know, a lot of people go into freelancing because they believe in this idea of like becoming free and independent and creative in their own terms, because, you know, they think, okay, I'll take the project and I'll do whatever. And they also do it because of that insistent need of like being recognized as artists. And, you know, they want to build a name, and it's like, you know, I almost fear that they do it for the social media glory, if that makes any sense.
Unfortunately, it does, yeah.
And a lot of people, very few people actually, they do it because, you know, they say, you know what, I think I can do something to improve the life of my client. So, you know, they never prioritize based on what they can do for the client. It's always like, you know, they prioritize on themselves. And maybe I'm totally wrong. That's why I want to, you know, drop the ball on you and say, what do you say on this?
Well, this is a little bit of a difficult question to answer, because if you are thinking about the client, then that means that you are thinking less about yourself. And I don't know. I honestly believe that being a freelancer especially requires a lot of thinking about yourself. While, of course, okay, sorry, again, this won't sound humble at all, but I never had unhappy clients. So I'm actually in quite a convenient position that my clients were always, well, relatively happy with me, at least. And I don't know, and thinking about myself at that point was kind of beneficial to us both, because I was thinking about the fact that, you know, I was thinking about myself because I was thinking about my future, about the fact that I will be working with other people in the future that might know this particular client. I was thinking about the fact that I need to charge and I need to, you know, manage the project correctly so that everything works out for me, so that, you know, I don't starve and I'm not worrying about the money at the end of the month. And I think that kind of thinking, I like to believe that that kind of thinking also benefits the client. On the other hand, I do, of course, understand the fact that I want to make the client always happy. And I do understand that I have probably on numerous occasions bent over backwards to make the client happy. So I don't know, you have to find the balance. You have to find the balance between, you know, making your client happy, making yourself happy. Because otherwise, if you will only try to make the client happy, you will be miserable. You will be very miserable. And no one wants that, right?
Yes, you're totally right. And I think that, you know, at least for the year 2019, the keyword with everything, it's filter. Because, like I might say something, you might say something, and people might just run with everything that you're saying,
Yeah.
Like making the client happy is the result of you knowing how to do a good project, know how to manage the client, know that the client is getting value from your work, but it does not mean that you have to do everything that the client says, because that's the opposite, right?
Yeah, that's exactly it. Like, actually, there is a company that I freelanced for a few months ago, and their managing director was always telling me that the client, especially the client, our clients in our creative industry, the clients are very often wrong. And I mean, it doesn't come to the fact of their design. It doesn't come to they're managing the project, etc. But because we are the creative people, we are being trusted with creating a beautiful image, a beautiful animation, etc. So we should be, this sounds weird, we should be more right than the client. So it's kind of, you have to think in the terms of yourself, and you have to focus on the fact that you are the artist. They came to you. And you are being expected to deliver your quality, your vision. They came to you based on your portfolio. So yeah, it's kind of, at that point, yeah, it will be a little bit more about yourself. Yeah.
I like that. I really like this answer. Okay, so let me just take a little swirl to the right.
Go ahead.
Many artists seem to agree on this idea that, at least in the field of architecture visualization, because maybe it is more of a service-based, like almost like you're taking, orders of what needs to be specifically done by a client. They see the freelancing part of being an architecture visualization artist almost like if this was a liquid state, either a transition period where you're trying to gain experience for yourself, so that maybe you could work as a designer as a technical director in a bigger company, or where you try to monetize as much as you can, as quickly as you can, so that you can start your own business. Obviously, I want to leave these aside for a while because I'm talking to you and I know that you're doing this successfully. What do you think about this idea that freelancing is a liquid state? What's your take on this?
I do agree with it. I do actually agree with it. I mean, for me, freelancing right now is what I want to do. And I do actually like freelancing for other CG companies because it is a great way to meet people. I right now, I'm actually, over the last 2 months, I think, I've been working from home, and which means that, I don't get the interaction. I don't get that much interaction with other people as I usually would. And I can feel it taking a toll on me. I love being between people. So for me, being a freelancer and constantly being somewhere between people, freelancing for other companies, is a huge benefit and something that I really love. On the other hand, I do, plus, there is the added bonus of the experience. Because you freelance for so many companies, you meet so many people, you get a lot of experience. On the other hand, I can't see myself being, 62 and freelancing for other CG companies. So, it's yes, I will definitely do it for probably quite some time. But is freelancing something that I would like to do, till the end of my days and retirement, etc.? Definitely not, because freelancing is stressful. I am not gonna lie, you are basically trying to be a one-person company, and it is stressful. If you are working in a company on a permanent basis, then, of course that's not 100% true, but you don't have that much responsibility. If you won't show up for work because you're ill and you will take sick leave for 3 days, nothing will happen, because in a company someone else will most likely pick up the project after you. If you are a freelancer, taking sick leave is almost impossible to do. Like, I don't know, I can be coughing and have terrible sniffles, etc. I will still sit down in front of my PC and I will do the work. I won't be as productive as I would be on a regular basis, but I have to do the work because it's just me. So, it's I don't know. Yes, I do honestly believe that freelancing is not something that you can do for the rest of your life. On the other hand, because of my other background as it is, there are hundreds of photographers that are 50, 60 years old, and they are practically freelancers. Yes, of course, they do hire retouchers or cameramen or etc., but they are 60 years old and they are still running with the camera by themselves. So apparently you can do it.
Well,
I'm not sure if I would like to.
I think that probably the essential difference between the two shops, if you like, is that on one end, if you're doing architectural visualization, there is a process of like back and forth that, and also the possibility of like going and edit what you have done. It can actually take a toll on whatever it is that you're trying to do. In photography, there is this element of like the moment, and when the moment is gone, either you have done a great job as a photographer or, you have lost an opportunity. And I guess that, a good photographer that has experience can use experience better in a field like photography than in architecture visualization, because in architecture visualization, a project can change and everything that you have done, even though it's done, you'll have to go back and change it, and it can become really frustrating. I don't know. I was having this conversation with a few friends of mine. A guy is actually an illustrator, and he does pictures by hand. He basically draws by hand. And he says, in my job, there isn't really any going back. It's either, you call me to do what I do and you're happy with it, or, we'll negotiate and next time we'll try to find a better way to talk. But, it's a one hit. And I think that this is probably the reason why we see a lot more artists going like, seed med into their 90s and still making drawings, because, they're creative and that's what you're getting. Nowadays, an artist can download an HDRI, models from Evermotion, and they'll call themselves ArchViz artists. You know what I mean?
I know what you mean.
And I don't mean to bash on people that do that. It is how the job has evolved. But I don't know.
Yeah, I get it. No, you are definitely right. I'm just kind of thinking if this is comparable freelance-wise, because maybe it is a little bit different for photography. I mean, you have to pick up a camera, but like if I would want to be 62 and sit at home in front of my PC by myself, I'm not sure, to be honest.
Now I keep thinking about you getting old in front of the computer.
Oh, shut up. No, I know what you mean. And yeah, I only know one freelance ArchViz artist who is above 40, but he's been freelancing in the same company for the last, I want to say 3 years. But like most freelance artists that are older than me, that at least I know, they went back into a permanent position. They went into higher roles. I don't know, creative directors, art directors, etc. But they kind of went the other way around. They went from permanent to freelance. They freelanced for quite some time, and then they've either started a company, like Ian and Alex, or they went back into a permanent position. So I don't know if freelancing in our industry, especially because, like I mentioned before, it is a young industry. If freelancing in this industry is possible, kind of in the long run, especially because let's be honest, it is quite a static work, right? I mean, you do sit down in front of a PC and that's basically what you do. And that's it's the same issue with people working in cubicles, etc. They also burn out and have problems, etc. And I don't know if this translates or not, but
Simon,
yeah,
you know what? Time will tell.
Yeah, you are definitely right. Yeah, that is true. Because the first CG company started 25 years ago, 30 years ago?
Yeah, more
Something
or less.
like that.
I mean, I wasn't there looking at it, I got told by others, but it's actually fascinating, to see how it evolved, and sometimes, you learn things that you absolutely didn't even imagine, because, it's like we weren't there when these guys did it, and I just wish that there was a little bit more conversation from these gentlemen, because it would be nice to see what was done in the very beginning to start this industry. I very often
I know what you mean.
I very often spend long time talking about this kind of stuff with Jeff.
Yeah.
And it's fascinating. Sometimes he tells me stories and I'm like, keep talking, Grandpa.
I know, because I've met Jeff a few months ago, because he's been over here in London as well, and I got an opportunity to chat with him as well. And that conversation started as well. So yeah, I know, but it's kind of everyone understandable. So, but yeah, I do understand that a lot of people hold things very close to the vest, and it's all still basically starting up, and everyone is still trying to get experience. And very often I will look at a company that has been running for years and I'll just think, holy smokes, they are trying to figure this stuff out as they go as well. So it's what it is, unfortunately. And being a freelancer, you're only by yourself and you're trying to figure everything out as well.
That's also a difficult part, right? Because you don't really have a feedback loop of other people. So it's like you need to go and look for that loop, and it's... Anyway.
That actually wasn't the issue for me. The issue for me when I was starting out was all the stuff in the background. The images, the comments, etc. That was never an issue for me. The accounting stuff, the how to do stuff, all that, mundane, all those mundane things that no one really wants to do, those were my biggest issue at the beginning.
Simon, let's jump to your work. I'm interested in knowing a few things. Like, for instance, how do you approach a job at the very beginning? How does the magic start? Like, what are the things that you do at first when you have to approach a job, when a client comes to you? What is the first type of conversation that you like to have with your client? Enlighten me.
Type of conversation? Well, because I freelance, which is like a lot of CG companies, etc. That kind of takes a little bit of the load off me. Although, for the last few months, I've been actually working from home on my own project. So, okay, maybe let's start with that one. How do I start a conversation? I usually, get a quote for a project, so someone will just send through some basic drawings or some basic design of, well, in this case, a building. And most of the time I will immediately receive a deadline that they are trying to achieve. Obviously, I mean, our industry works deadlines all the time, so it has to be done. And the question will be about if the deadline is achievable, about how much will it cost, and nowadays, very often there are questions about if we will get any freebies and stuff like that, which clients usually do. I do a lot of tests and vignettes, etc. So like I'll always throw in an image or two. I don't mind as long as the client is, smiling and at the end of the project is like, yeah, that was great. Then I'm happy. I can do a little bit of extra work. But usually my conversation starts with my approach. I usually send, because the stuff that you see on my website, it doesn't actually reflect my work per se, because the stuff that you see on my website is work that I've done like 3 or 4 years ago. Oh no, probably even more than that. Yeah, that's stuff from 5 or 6 years ago. So, I have a separate portfolio that I usually kind of present nowadays to the client. And, I will show it to the client and see, yes, of course, they come to me because of this and this, but then I will say, okay, nowadays we do this and this and this, and it looks better, and this is what you will get, this is what we can add, this is how we do it, if this is something that they would be interested in. And, my first thing is always to start a conversation. I don't necessarily speak about money. I don't necessarily immediately speak about, managing the project and what will happen afterwards. I usually try to find out what the client actually wants to receive. Because what the client will tell you in the first project very, very rarely actually is what the client wants to have at the end of the project. So, the kind of first approach is the conversation, the finding out the expectations. If possible, I will usually try to meet a client in person, because that is a huge thing nowadays. Being able to meet face-to-face or even do a video chat is way more beneficial than just an email exchange. Clients want to, even a phone call, clients always want to connect who they work with to voice, to a face, to, get a feeling of a person.
Yes.
And, get to know what they can expect,
yes.
Which is fair enough. It's exactly the same with me. On the other hand, I do understand that I am a person that avoids like fire meeting face to face. I don't think that I am a very open to people person. I do honestly think that I am an introvert and very shy. So getting all that conversation started was always an issue for me. On the other hand, yes, that benefits, and you always should start with that. Nail down the client's expectations, introduce yourself, show stuff that you can, show things that you can do, present the client with options, with different approach, with something, something amazing that is not actually visible on your website.
Mm-hmm.
And
that's very important.
It is. It definitely is, because, you can show to the client that you actually care, and you can show to the client that the stuff that you do is amazing and that they came to the person that they really wanted to come to. And for me, it was always very important. From there, obviously, the conversation goes straight to finances, because I've noticed that a lot of clients at this point will, no, sorry, we can't afford it, and will just bail. But I also know that I am not a person that will agree on any price, because it doesn't work. If you just agree on some random low price, all of a sudden you will have to, do tens of comments, and all of a sudden you will waste time and, money at this point. And it just doesn't work in the long run. Mm-hmm. If you have a set price for your image, try to stick to that. Don't just lower the price because the client says, "Oh no, I'm sorry, but we will try to find someone cheaper," or whatever. I don't know. I think that having a little bit of a higher price actually benefits you as well, because it shows that you have the quality that you can back up behind that price. I don't know. It's kind of,
there is a lot of psychology like involved in pricing also. Like
Oh, yeah.
sometimes, if you are way too cheap, even if you're good, the client will always think, there must be something, when
Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's kind of like I even like, even if I'm buying, like you have the Audio-Technica headphones, like when I was looking for headphones, I won't buy cheap headphones purely because I already know that they will be just rubbish. They might look fantastic on a photo or present amazingly, but no one wants cheap stuff, right?
yeah.
So it's kind of that's yeah. There is a weird psychology to pricing your work. After pricing, what I usually do, well, I will gather all the materials, and then it's just your standard everyday grind. Sit down for a PC, model stuff, or if I don't necessarily have the time to model, I will just ask one of my friends to model stuff for me. And then it's the usual, the texturing, lighting, rendering, the client email exchange, etc. But it's what we all do. The only kind of differences that I find very often, especially if you are a new freelancer, you will just do comments on comments on top of comments on top of comments for days, weeks, and months, and not charge for them. I usually, in my contract, I state that I do 3 rounds of comments, but after that I will charge depending on the scope of changes that are necessary. If it's just something easy retouching, then it will be cheaper than new design. But I do honestly believe that is important to charge for comments, because if not, then client will just comment and comment, because they have the option to do it. Like I would do the same. So yeah, definitely charge for comments.
Although sometimes I also feel like we're a little bit victims of our own policies, because you give clients 3 rounds of changes, and then the 3rd round, just because they have to have it, it will be something stupid or hideous. And, it will be your ability to tell them, okay, you know what? Just because it's for free, it doesn't mean that you can go and, smear shit all over the pictures that I made for you. But you know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah, I definitely know what you mean. I definitely know what you mean. But I also have to honestly say that I am the type of person that if something is stated like this in the contract,
yes, of course,
and
you
at that point, if the client will come to me and change this and this and this, and the contract allows that, then I will basically, how they say it, bite the bullet and say, yes, the client is allowed to do it, and I will do it. Because in the end, I want the client to be happy. And like a lot of this doesn't happen often, but every now and then, of course, it does happen. And at that time, the client just says, can we actually go back to the previous version? So I do prefer to make to show the client that what they've chosen is wrong. And, we should just roll back.
Because it builds trust, right? Because the next time they'll be like, okay, let me see the comments. But you know what? You already done it before. It was great. Let's just stick with it. I'm totally with you. I believe that we are the result of our most epic and noble actions. If we do something that it's good, it will somehow come back.
Oh yeah, karma, baby.
Yeah, exactly. Simon, let's jump to something else. I'm curious to find out more about your photography, because you're an exceptional photographer. And
thanks, man.
I like Google stuff, and all of a sudden pictures of you come up on Google searches. You're also very established. I mean, you have a name in the industry. Landscape photography, it's probably the biggest thing that you do. You have made beautiful pictures from Norway, Iceland. Is this part of your business? Can you expand a little bit? Can you tell me that part of the story?
That part of the story. Full disclosure, this is not my business. I'm not pursuing this as a career purely because the photography business nowadays is very competitive, and I just don't have the time to do it. And secondly, it's difficult to, go into a completely new business where you don't have any connections, where you don't know anyone, etc., etc. On the other hand, I love to travel. My photography is side effect of me. I love the mountains. I love hiking, and photography kind of happened completely by accident. I was working in a company like 6 years ago or something like that. And basically I was allowed to use their in-office camera. So like, I think I went with my current wife for some holidays or something like that for a weekend, and I just took the camera, and it just, I don't know, it was fun. It was just, it was great taking photos, and, just being able to return to them and apply, all your Photoshop knowledge to that and just create something amazing. And yeah, it kind of just stayed with me. And right now, yes, I do every now and then have a client that, that will pay me for a photo or two. But it was never my career. It was never what I was looking for. My photography mostly kind of is a way to pay for my travels, or a way to, to justify my travels.
I understand. It's still beautiful, and
oh, thanks, man. Oh no, it's a lot of fun. That's why I do it. Like, I'm an artist. I do think of myself that I am a pure blue-blooded artist, and this is just because when I was working permanently, I started doing photography just as kind of, keep the creative juices flowing, and doing something else, something inspiring, and it just stayed with me.
I totally appreciate that, and I think that, more artists should think about finding their own creative outlet, because I feel that very often what happens is that a lot of artists, they put a lot of artistic energy into their architectural visualization work. Sometimes all this energy, it's not really needed, because it doesn't really fit what maybe the client or the design manager are looking for. So you still need an outlet that allows you to, free your mind and wander, because artists, we are defined by what we make, right?
Definitely.
So I do consider also myself an artist, maybe not the best artist, although I don't really know what the best artist is, but I do have my own things and I like to mess around, so I can totally relate with what you're saying, and I don't know, I'm very happy to hear you saying these things, because it makes me feel less lonely.
Oh no, like I don't know if doing this job for 10 plus years, it's you can easily fall into that rut of just constantly doing the same thing. And I do think that you need some inspiration, you need some outside influence. You have to go to a gallery, watch a beautiful painting, you have to, I don't know, look at sculptures, etc., to to stay creative. Because architectural visualization is correct me if I'm wrong, but I honestly think that this is a little bit of a weird industry, purely because it's a connection of technical and creative. Because on a daily basis we read technical drawings, we I don't know, have to know the size of a brick and size of a curb, etc. But on the other hand, we have to know composition, and we have to know retouch in Photoshop, etc. And if you won't keep that running, if you won't keep that kind of inspired, then you will just be known for doing the same thing in one or two images, and nothing new will happen.
Yeah,
and that's not really a long-term strategy.
So I'm gonna add something to what you said. It's also a part psychology, and this was a friend of mine that works for I don't want to say the name because he never really allowed me to use this, but he says, sometimes it is about making sure that your client doesn't freak out. So, reinsure them that everything will be fine. Because at the end of the day, you're making a building. You're not saving lives in, like you're not curing cancer.
Yeah, that's true. That's actually recently who was it? Oh no, I know who it was, but yeah, I can't tell the name anyways. But yeah, that's when when you're getting older, etc. Like when you're 40, etc. You start thinking that you want to do something for. At least I like to think so, that people want to do something for the world.
Mm-hmm.
And while architectural illustration is beautiful and it has a purpose in life, that's the thing. It's not really you're not a doctor, you're not a fireman or whatever. So yeah, being able to do something outside of that and being able to inspire others, etc. Like I'm trying to do with my photography, and like there are painters and people that play violin, etc. I think it's important, and I think it's kind of, it should be a part of our life, that goal to inspire others. And well, yes, of course you can do that with architectural visualization. It is still very technical, and I think that there are other creative outlets that you should approach and try to do to keep being inspired and keep inspiring others.
Simon, believe it or not, we've already been going on for an hour with our conversation. Time is flying, right?
Yeah, that's true. Oh man, it's just a pleasure to chat with you.
It's like the only thing that it's missing right now, it's beer.
Hey, wait, I might have somewhere one.
I can't. My parents are in the other room, and I make them believe that I'm a good guy. I don't drink.
No parent believes that.
Listen, any future plans about your business? Like, we touched on being a liquid state. What comes next?
What comes next? Well, for now, like I mentioned before, I would like to stay freelance a little bit more, purely because I honestly do love the contact with people, the opportunities that it just presents to me. But in the long run, I don't know, maybe either coming to some company as a creative director or art director, because I do honestly believe that if not yet, then I'm kind of achieving that level that I would have enough experience for that. Or maybe, I don't know, doing something for myself. Definitely at some point, that whole freelance gig will I like to think, evolve into something more than this. But yeah, for now, I do enjoy freelancing.
I think you're already above the level to become a director, but do it at your own time. Do it at your own pace.
I will do.
Simon, if somebody comes to you saying, I've listened to the interview with Fabio, please give me one piece of advice so that I can also have my own career. And it can be anything, like in the past I've heard people saying, don't try freelancing because when I did it, it used to be better. Now things have gotten a little bit worse, or, do experience somewhere else. It can be anything that you like.
Fair enough. Anything that I like. Don't try freelancing without experience. Be kind, be polite to people, make connections, and be disciplined.
I'll have to try the discipline thing myself.
I'm still trying it as well. I'm trying to be well-spoken, but I'm rubbish with discipline.
You know what? The only problem that I have with discipline is food. And every time that I try, either my parents come visiting, or there is a party that we have to go to, or a new restaurant that opens, and I'm like, it's my life.
Actually, that part of your life I do understand, unfortunately. But the food nowadays is so delicious, and especially living in London, we have a genuine Italian pizzeria right downstairs underneath my apartment. Oh, it's so painful to avoid that place.
You'll have to remove the nerves from your nose from feeling the smell, you know?
That would be very beneficial. Yes, please.
Simon, thanks a lot for taking the time. I think that this was an absolutely fun interview, and I really hope the people at home will enjoy it as much as I did in making it. If people,
thanks, man.
If people want to find you, where can they find you?
Just probably go on to presenterdesign.com, because that's my main 3D website, or just find me on Facebook. My Facebook web page for Presenter Design is quite big, so I don't actually update it as often as I used to, but it's still the standard social media stuff. Also, the photography stuff is on Instagram at Simon Migaj. So, yeah,
I will put all the links in the description for anybody who is, looking to get in touch with you. Simon, thanks a lot for doing this again. I'm going to stop the recording. Don't go anywhere. I want to say thank you one more time.
That's cool. Thanks, man. It was a pleasure.
My pleasure.